You know, usually when we talk about building a machine, say, like restoring a classic 1960s vintage car, there's this really strict expectation of mechanical precision.
Oh, absolutely. Everything has its place.
Right, you open up the hood, you look
Yeah.
inside, and every single component you see has a very specific, undeniable function. I mean, the carburetor exists to mix the air and the fuel.
The spark plugs are there to ignite that mixture. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're driving that vintage car down the highway and the engine just suddenly stalls out,
Yeah.
you don't sit there on the side of the road wondering if the car is, like, having an existential crisis.
Right. You don't blame the alignment of the stars for a broken engine.
No. You trace the mechanical failure. You systematically check the systems, right? Air, fuel, spark. You find the broken part, you replace it, and the engine runs again. It's binary. It works or it doesn't.
Which is, I think, why we find so much comfort in mechanical systems. It's a closed loop, you know?
Yeah.
It's governed by really predictable causality. Action A leads to result B. And if result B doesn't happen, well, something is obviously wrong with action A.
But, and this is the crazy part, the moment you step out of a garage and into the world of entrepreneurship, that pristine mechanical logic, it seems to completely vanish from our minds.
Oh, it goes right out the window.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when a startup stalls out, we stop looking for the broken spark plug. Suddenly we start blaming the economic weather or the road conditions or just plain bad luck.
We treat businesses like they're these mysterious organic entities.
Yes, like they magically thrive because the universe willed it, or they inexplicably die because, it just wasn't meant to be.
And that shift in mindset, honestly, is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. When a startup fails, the postmortem analysis is almost always clouded by this heavy emotion.
Vague complaints about market dynamics, right?
Exactly. And a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually went wrong beneath the surface. Founders just can't see the mechanical failure because they never really viewed their company as a machine in the first place.
Well, today, we are going to completely dismantle that murky, emotional view of entrepreneurship. Welcome to today's deep dive, where we are going to explore a really fascinating, comprehensive blueprint.
We're pulling the exact mechanical blueprints from a framework called StartupLanes, building business and raising funds.
And we're going to look at how you, the listener, can debug a business with the exact same cold, clinical precision you would use to debug a stalled engine.
The scope of this source material is just staggering. It's really an epic 100-step roadmap.
It's massive. This isn't just a loose collection of, generic motivational tips. It's a highly structured curriculum that moves from the genesis of a raw idea all the way to ringing the bell at an initial public offering.
The comprehensiveness is really what sets it apart. It removes the magic from the equation completely.
But to build an empire, you have to start with the foundation, right? You cannot scale a system that you do not fundamentally understand. So today, we are zooming all the way in on the very first conceptual step of this massive 100-episode framework.
The founder's DNA.
The founder's DNA. Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer scale of the StartupLanes curriculum is a bit intimidating, right?
It can be, yeah, if you look at it all at once.
So before we get into the psychology of the founder, walk us through the actual architecture of this 100-step framework, just so we understand the map we're looking at.
Sure. So the architecture here is designed specifically to prevent founders from skipping ahead, because that is a primary reason businesses fail.
People love to skip the boring stuff.
Exactly. So the framework divides the 100-episode scope into 4 very distinct, non-negotiable phases. Phase 1 covers the first 25 steps, and it is entirely focused on the foundation and mindset.
So this is the internal work.
Right. This is where you conduct these grueling self-assessments. You validate your ideas without spending a single dollar of capital. You build your personal operating system, establish deep work routines.
Wait, let me stop you right there. Because validating ideas without spending capital sounds great in theory. But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, people assume you need money to build a prototype to see if people even want the thing.
And that is the exact assumption Phase 1 tries to break. Validating without capital means you don't build the product first, you build the offer first.
Oh, interesting. So you're selling the idea before it exists.
Basically, yeah. You create a simple landing page, or you literally just talk to 50 potential customers and say, hey, if I built a solution that solves this specific pain point for this specific price, would you give me a deposit right now?
And if they all say no?
If they all say no, you've validated that the idea is flawed, and it cost you $0 in manufacturing or coding. That's the foundational mindset. You script the business's logic before you ever write a line of code.
Okay, so phase one is purely the blueprint stage.
Yeah.
What happens when you finally move into phase two?
Phase 2 spans steps 26 through 50, and it moves into building the business. This is the heavy execution phase. You're moving from theory to reality.
So building the actual thing.
Yes, product strategy, measuring actual usefulness in the market, navigating early team dynamics, and learning how to manage remote teams. The goal here is achieving early operational momentum. The text calls it overcoming thrust and drag.
Getting the airplane off the runway.
Precisely.
And I imagine this is where most people crash, right? Because building a team and actually delivering a product is like infinitely harder than just sketching an idea on a whiteboard.
Completely. Which is exactly why you only earn the right to enter phase 3, which is steps 51 to 75, after you have survived that initial launch.
What's phase three?
Phase 3 is titled Scaling and Financials, and this is where the framework becomes highly ruthlessly quantitative.
Let's break down that quantitative aspect a bit. When we say scaling and financials, we really run the risk of sounding like a dry accounting textbook. What are the actual levers a founder is pulling in phase three?
Well, phase 3 is all about understanding unit economics. It's managing cash flow and calculating really critical metrics like your customer acquisition cost and your lifetime value.
Okay, let's play the ELI5 game explain. Like, I'm 5 for the listeners who might be brilliant at building a product, but, don't have an MBA. Walk us through unit economics, customer acquisition cost, and lifetime value.
Sure, let's use a tangible example. Imagine you're selling a monthly subscription box for premium coffee.
Okay, love coffee.
Right. So unit economics simply means zooming in on one subtle box. If you sell the box for $30, but the coffee beans cost you $15, the cardboard box costs $2, shipping is $8, and the transaction fee is $1.
So that's what, $26 total?
Exactly. Your total cost to deliver that one unit is $26. You make $4 of gross profit per unit. Now, if those numbers are inverted, say it costs you $32 to deliver a $30 box, your unit economics are fundamentally broken.
Meaning, the more successful you are at selling, the faster you go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Every sale is a mechanical failure.
Precisely the danger. Now, add in customer acquisition cost, or CAC. This is how much you have to spend on marketing to get one person to actually buy that coffee box.
Right.
So if you spend $500 on social media ads, and that results in 50 new customers, your CAC is $10 per customer.
So if I'm making $4 of profit on the box, but it costs me $10 in ads to get the customer, I'm losing $6 every time someone signs up. The engine is literally flooding.
Exactly. Which is where lifetime value, or LTV, comes in to save the day or, seal your doom.
LTV.
LTV is the total amount of money that customer will spend with you over their entire relationship with your business. So if the average customer stays subscribed to your coffee box for 10 months, their lifetime value is that $4 of profit multiplied by 10 months.
So $40.
Yes. Now, the math works. You spent $10 to acquire them, but you will make $40 in profit over the next 10 months.
This is the exact moment the machine starts humming. You put $10 in, and $40 comes out over time.
And that understanding is what phase 3 prepares you for, specifically, navigating the venture capital landscape. Investors do not want to fund your passion, right? They want to fund a machine that has a proven CAC to LTV ratio.
If you can prove that math, you can raise capital.
Yes. And if you survive that influx of capital and scale the company, you finally reach phase 4, which is step 76 to 100.
The final frontier. What does the framework define as phase 4?
Advanced strategy and scaling to IPO. The focus completely shifts here. You're no longer worried about daily unit economics. You are navigating massive inflection points.
Like what?
You're building structural systems that can outlive you as the founder. You're preparing for black swan events, those highly improbable, catastrophic events like a pandemic or financial collapse. It also involves corporate governance, building a board of directors, and ultimately preparing for an IPO, an initial public offering, where the company transitions to being publicly traded on the stock market.
Yeah. It is a massive gauntlet. And what really grounds this entire methodology, what keeps it from just being like a theoretical business school exercise, is the origin story behind it.
Right.
The methodology is anchored by Dr. Shishir Gupta, and the text explicitly points out that his journey began way back in 1997. But he didn't start as a venture capitalist.
No, he didn't.
He didn't start in a boardroom. He started as a software developer. The source specifically refers to his foundation as a techie inventor.
And that specific background, the 1997 software developer, shapes the entire philosophy of this framework. It's the lens through which every single one of those 100 steps is viewed.
Because coding is pure logic.
Exactly. To understand why that tech background matters so much, you just have to look at the track record provided in the text. This Techie Inventor Foundation eventually allowed Dr. Gupta to facilitate over $111 million in investment across 136 different startups.
That's insane.
And furthermore, he personally guided 6 SMEs, small and medium enterprises, all the way to an IPO.
Over 136 startups. That is just a staggering data set. It means he has looked under the hood of 136 different machines across different industries.
He knows exactly what makes them hum.
Right. And he has seen exactly what causes them to explode right there on the launch pad.
And the core thesis that emerges from analyzing that massive data set is what the text calls the inventor's mindset.
Okay, break that down for us.
The central argument here is that a successful founder absolutely must understand the mechanical DNA of modern startups. The text states clearly that whether you are a coder by trade or a graphic designer or a marketer, you must possess a profound technical curiosity.
So you can't just outsource the understanding.
No, you have to actively want to understand how the machine works from the absolute ground up.
Because if you don't understand the how and the why of your own machine, you are just flying blind. Let's go back to that vintage car analogy.
Let's do it.
You might absolutely love driving that car. You love the aesthetic. You love the prestige of, like, pulling up to a nice restaurant in it. You love the identity of being a vintage car owner.
Sure, it feels great.
But if you have zero technical curiosity, if you actively refuse to learn what a carburetor is or how the alternator charges the battery, you're going to be stranded on the side of the highway the very first time it stalls.
You won't know if the transmission is blown or if you just have an empty gas tank. You're completely helpless.
Exactly. And in the startup arena, being stranded on the highway translates to running out of runway, burning through your capital, and having to look your team in the eye and tell them they don't have a job tomorrow.
What's fascinating here is that technical depth translates directly to business longevity. Understanding the mechanics prevents founders from treating their business like a magical black box.
Right, a black box where the founder's mentality is simply like, I pour investment money in this side, I hire some people, I post on social media, and I just desperately hope profit pops out the other side.
The techie inventor mindset rejects that black box entirely. If you think like a coder, you view your business as a series of interconnected logical systems.
Nothing's as magic.
Exactly. Marketing isn't magic. It's a system with inputs and outputs. Customer acquisition is a system. HR is a system.
So if things go wrong, you debug it.
Right. If the final output, let's say your monthly recurring revenue is dropping, a founder with the inventor's mindset doesn't just panic or yell at the sales team. They trace the logic backwards, exactly like a programmer debugging lines of code until they find the exact point of failure.
Okay, let's visualize that debugging process just to make it real. If I'm running an e-commerce startup and my sales suddenly drop by 50% this week, how does the 1997 coder mindset approach that crisis compared to, say, a traditional emotion-driven founder?
Okay, well, the emotion-driven founder looks at the 50% drop and immediately assumes the market hates the product, or a competitor is destroying them, or, consumer spending is just down.
They panic.
They might immediately order a total redesign of the product or slash prices. They treat the symptom with a sledgehammer.
They start changing the engine when they might just be out of gas.
Exactly the problem. The techie inventor founder, however, starts at the end of the code and works backward. They ask, are people clicking the buy button and it's physically broken?
No, the checkout software is functioning.
Okay. Are people abandoning their carts at a higher rate?
Yes. Cart abandonment spiked.
Why? Did a shipping fee change?
The API connecting our site to the shipping provider broke, and it's displaying a $100 shipping fee to every single customer.
Oh, wow. So they isolate the bug. It wasn't the market. It wasn't the product. It was literally just a broken string of code in the shipping calculator.
You isolate the bug, you write the patch, and the revenue returns. You are equipped to fix the machine in a crisis because you understand the logic that connects the parts. You don't rely on hope. You rely on diagnostics.
That structural clarity makes total sense. But, it leads us into a much more difficult conversation.
How so?
Because understanding the cold, hard mechanics of a business is one thing, right? You can take a course to learn how to read a balance sheet. You can hire an analyst to help you calculate your customer acquisition costs.
Sure.
But what happens when the mind of the founder is what breaks down under pressure? Because a perfectly functioning, finely tuned machine is completely useless if the driver is having a massive panic attack at the steering wheel.
That is a very real danger.
And the source text dives deeply into this. It explores the psychological traits of the founder's DNA, starting with this very specific concept of the arena.
The arena mentality is central to phase 1 of this framework. The text really goes out of its way to contrast the modern stylized perception of entrepreneurship with the actual grueling reality.
Because right now, being a founder looks very glamorous on Instagram.
It does. We have this very aesthetic view of the hustle. It's coffee shop meetings, sleek laptops, magazine covers, tech conferences. But the reality of being a founder is fraught with constant uncertainty. It's friction, dust, and sweat.
It is an arena in the most brutal, gladiatorial sense of the word.
You are in the dirt. You are taking hits every single day. And there is no referee to stop the fight when you're tired.
Yeah.
And the most crucial psychological concept the text introduces to survive this arena is the internal locus of control. This is where the framework delivers its most empowering and, frankly, its most harsh truth.
What's that?
The text states categorically that a startup only fails if the founder decides it should.
Wow. A startup only fails if the founder decides it should. That is a massive, heavy statement. I mean, it places the entire weight of existence squarely on the founder's shoulders.
It is the ultimate expression of the internal locus of control. The text notes that across those 136 companies evaluated for the $111 million investment portfolio, this mindset was the defining difference between the companies that survived and the ones that died.
It wasn't about the funding.
It wasn't who had the most funding initially. It wasn't who had the Ivy League degree. It was the speed at which a founder could pivot from the emotional reaction of asking, why me,
Right.
to the mechanical reaction of asking, what now?
Why me versus what now?
Yeah.
That's a huge shift.
Yes, because when a highly anticipated product launch completely flops, or your lead engineer walks out to join a competitor, or a Series A funding round suddenly dries up at the last minute, the default human reaction is to look for external validation.
We want to find external entities to blame.
Exactly. We want to say, the investors just didn't get it, or the market wasn't ready.
The algorithm changed.
The algorithm changed, right. But the founders who survive are the ones who stop seeking validation and start seeking solutions. When the market shifts, they don't blame the economy, they pivot the product.
When venture capital disappears, they don't fold the company.
They choose to bootstrap, which means funding the company entirely from your own limited revenue instead of outside investment. They take absolute full responsibility for the outcome.
Okay, I need to push back on this heavily on behalf of anyone listening who has ever run a business during an actual crisis.
Go for it.
Because while I love the motivational empowerment of that idea, this idea that you are the absolute master of your fate, is it actually practically fair to say a startup only fails if the founder decides it should? Let's talk about reality here.
Okay, let's look at reality.
What about massive macroeconomic shifts? Like what if a global pandemic hits and global supply chains completely shut down? Your manufacturer in Asia is locked down, you literally have zero product to sell, and your revenue drops to zero overnight.
That's a brutal scenario.
Or what if a massive regulatory change by the government makes your core software product suddenly illegal to use in your primary market? In those scenarios, does this internal locus of control concept put an unfair, toxic amount of blame on the founder for things that are genuinely physically outside of their control?
This raises an important question, and it is honestly the most common and valid pushback to this philosophy. It's something founders grapple with constantly, especially in volatile markets.
It feels like blaming the victim of an earthquake, you know?
It does, but we have to look very closely at the nuance of what the text is actually arguing here. The source material does not claim that a founder controls the global economy, or global supply chains, or government regulatory bodies.
So it's not magical thinking.
No, it's not the secret.
Yeah.
It claims that the founder has absolute control over their response to those external shocks.
Okay, so the event is external, but the response is internal.
Exactly the distinction. Let's take your scenario of the global pandemic shutting down your supply chain. You have zero product. The external event, the loss of your physical inventory, is outside your control. You cannot force a factory across the world to open.
Right, you just can't.
But the decision to look at your team and say, well, we have no product to sell, we have no revenue, so I guess we have to close the doors and declare bankruptcy, That is a final decision made by the founder.
Well, if they have no product, what is the alternative to closing the doors?
The alternative is the mechanical pivot. The founder with an internal locus of control says, okay, we have no physical product, therefore we will instantly cut our monthly burn rate, our operating expenses by 70%. We'll furlough non-essential projects.
Stop the bleeding.
Exactly. And we will pivot our entire team to a service-based consulting model using the expertise we already have in-house to generate immediate cash flow. We will survive on consulting revenue until the supply chains reopen in 12 months.
Wow, so the original business model selling the physical product might be temporarily suspended or even dead, but the company doesn't fail because the founder refuses to close the corporate entity.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Let's look at the regulatory example you brought up. The government bans your software. You don't control the government,
Right.
but you control the code. You can choose to fold, or you can choose to take the underlying architecture of that software, strip out the illegal components, repackage the remaining technology into a B2B data analytics tool, and launch it into a completely different, unregulated industry.
That's intense. The choice to fold or to ruthlessly adapt is the internal locus of control in action.
And refusing to fold when all the external circumstances demand that you should, that resilience is not some innate genetic gift that you're either born with or you aren't.
The text calls it a muscle, right?
It explicitly calls it a muscle.
Right.
And it is a muscle that is built solely by choosing to stay in the arena, dealing with the dust and the sweat every single day. If you make the foundational decision that the company simply will not fail, you will endlessly iterate the mechanics until you find a crack in the wall to slip through.
Okay, this brings up a really critical operational question. If a founder adopts this mindset, if they have this unyielding internal locus of control, and they absolutely refuse to quit under any circumstances, how do they actually apply that relentless energy in a productive way?
Because energy without direction is chaos.
Exactly, because raw, unguided stubbornness just isn't enough to build a business. You can furiously dig a hole in the wrong direction for 10 years. You can be the hardest working person in the arena, but if you are fighting the wrong battle, you still lose.
You're just exhausted and bankrupt.
Yeah. So how do you move from simply refusing to quit to actually executing in a way that scales?
Well, that operational pivot is the exact transition the source material makes next. The text warns fiercely against being a dreamer.
What's wrong with being a dreamer? I feel like we tell founders to dream big all the time.
We do, but a dreamer has the boundless energy, they have the passion, and they might even have the resilience, but they lack the clinical mechanics of execution. And the most common trap for the dreamer, the thing that destroys more potential than anything else, is what the text calls idea hopping.
Idea hopping. Okay, explain what that looks like in the day-to-day life of a startup.
It is a state of perpetual distraction that disguises itself as innovation.
Ooh, that's dangerous.
Right. Monday morning, the founder comes in completely energized and says, we're building a B2B SaaS platform for accountants. It's the future.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
The team starts coding, but by Wednesday, the founder reads an article about AI and decides, actually, the real money is in a consumer-facing AI marketplace. Stop the SaaS build, we're pivoting.
Oh, no.
And then by Friday, they've met an investor who likes blockchain, and suddenly the company is pivoting to Web3.
And meanwhile, the team is just getting total intellectual whiplash. The budget is bleeding out, and absolutely nothing is getting finished.
You spread your focus, your cognitive bandwidth, and your financial resources entirely too thin. You're basically running 100 sprints in 100 different directions, which means you move exactly 0 inches forward.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This reminds me of like building a house. Idea hopping is like a developer who buys an empty lot and decides to build a house.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Right. So on Monday, they pour a wide, flat concrete foundation for a sprawling ranch-style home.
Yeah.
But on Wednesday, they get bored of the ranch idea and decide they want a towering Victorian home instead.
So they have to start over.
Yeah, they tear up the plumbing they just laid and try to build upward. By Friday, they want a modern glass skyscraper, so they smash the wooden framing they just built to lay steel.
And let me guess, 5 years later.
5 years later, they have spent millions of dollars, they have worked exhaustingly hard every single day, but all they have is a dirt lot filled with broken concrete and twisted metal. They never actually built a roof to protect them from the rain.
That is a brilliant way to visualize operational collapse, because in the startup arena, you just do not have the luxury of constantly changing the architectural plans.
You run out of materials.
Exactly. The text states that enduring success comes from picking one good idea and obsessing over it with clinical precision until it becomes a market leader. It's not about being the genius who has 10 average ideas.
It's about execution.
It's about having the extreme discipline to say no to 99 exciting distractions so you can execute the one foundational idea that actually matters.
And the text gives us a specific framework for this level of discipline, right? It calls it the operator's mindset.
Yes. The operator's mindset is the necessary evolution of the inventor's mindset. The inventor understands how the machine works. The operator knows how to drive it to a specific destination without crashing.
So it's about mapping the route.
It is the ability to take a raw, untested idea and map out the exact granular sequential steps required to turn it into a product that a consumer is actually willing to swipe their credit card for.
Which brings us right back to Dr. Gupta's 1997 coding roots, doesn't it?
It does. In software development, if you have a single bug, literally one missing semicolon in a string of logic, the entire program crashes.
The computer compiling the code doesn't care about your passion. It doesn't care about your vision for the software. The logic is either sound and it runs, or the logic is flawed and it crashes.
And the text argues that business mechanics are no different. You can have the most compelling, world-changing vision in the world, but if your execution is flawed, if your unit economics don't make sense, if your customer feedback loops are ignored, if your team structure is chaotic,
The business crashes.
the business will crash just like buggy software.
Yeah.
The operator forces themselves to map the logic of the business step by step to ensure it compiles correctly in the real world.
Okay, that sounds incredibly disciplined in theory. But let's put ourselves in the shoes of a founder on a random Tuesday morning.
Tuesday mornings are always tough.
Right. They sit down at their desk. They have 300 unread emails. They have 2 key employees in a dispute over a project. The marketing campaign is underperforming, and the product needs a vital security update.
A standard Tuesday.
Everything feels urgent. Everything feels like it requires immediate attention. How does a founder actually avoid the noise and maintain that clinical, operator-level precision when the house feels like it's on fire?
Well, the source material provides a highly specific 3-part filter for founder focus to deal with exactly that overwhelm. It is ruthless, but it is entirely necessary to avoid drowning in trivialities.
Okay, lay it on us. What's the rule?
The rule is this. Look at the task in front of you. If that daily activity does not contribute directly to one of 3 specific outcomes, it must be eliminated from your schedule entirely.
Okay, what are the 3?
Number 1, does this activity contribute directly to the product's value? Number 2, does it contribute directly to the customer's experience? Number 3, does it contribute directly to your ability to raise capital?
Man, that is a harsh filter. Product value, customer experience, capital.
Well,
If it doesn't directly feed one of those 3 arteries, you drop it.
you drop it.
Let's pressure test this filter with some real-world startup scenarios.
Let's do it.
Okay, scenario 1. The founder is spending 4 hours on a Tuesday debating the exact hex color code of the new company logo with a freelance designer. They're fiercely arguing over ocean blue versus navy blue. Run that through the filter.
Okay, does debating the hex color improve the product's actual functional value? No.
Doesn't change what the product does.
Does it drastically improve the customer's experience using the product? Highly unlikely. Does ocean blue make a venture capitalist more likely to write a $2 million check? Absolutely not.
So what's the conclusion?
Eliminate the task. Pick a blue and move on.
Okay, scenario 2. The founder is spending 2 full days drafting a massive 50-page internal culture manifesto for a team of, 4 people.
Product value, no. Customer experience, no. Raising capital, no. Eliminate it. The culture is built by how you actually work together to solve problems, not by a 50-page document nobody has time to read.
It is honestly amazing how much time gets wasted on things that feel important but are actually just comfort mechanisms.
That is exactly what they are, comfort mechanisms. It feels like startup work, It looks like the things you see founders doing in movies or on TV, but it produces 0 actual growth.
It's play acting business.
Exactly. When they evaluated companies for that $111 million investment fund, they trained themselves to look past the charisma of the pitch deck. They looked for founders who were actively, ruthlessly engaged in strategic elimination.
Because that's what shows real focus.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, those 6 companies that went all the way to an IPO didn't win by doing absolutely everything. They won by filtering every single micro decision through the lens of long-term sustainability rather than just chasing the illusion of being busy.
The illusion of being busy is the silent killer of startups. I mean, you can work 16-hour days, completely exhaust yourself, and accomplish absolutely nothing of structural value if you aren't passing your tasks through that filter.
Strategic elimination forces you to confront the cold, hard mechanics of execution. It forces you to build the roof instead of constantly redesigning the foundation.
Okay, but let's be incredibly real for a second. Working with that level of ruthless clinical precision day in and day out, constantly eliminating distractions, constantly debugging the machine,
It takes a toll.
operating with this intense internal locus of control where every single failure is ultimately your responsibility to fix. That sounds utterly, bone-crushingly exhausting.
It is. Startup burnout is very real.
Right. So how does a human being sustain that level of mechanical intensity for 5, 10, or 15 years without just completely burning out? The source material talks about the trough of sorrow, that long period where the initial excitement is gone, the work is brutally hard, and success feels miles away.
Yes. The trough of sorrow is where most founders quit.
Mechanics and discipline can only carry you so far before the human body and mind just run out of gas. We need a renewable energy source to keep the operator functioning.
And that profound need for sustainable energy brings us to the final and perhaps the most vital component of the founder's DNA discussed in the source text: the power of purpose.
The power of purpose.
The framework explicitly addresses this inevitable exhaustion. It states that resilience, the ability to stay in the arena and debug the machine, is not a finite resource that you slowly drain until you collapse. Resilience is a renewable resource, but only if it is fueled by something substantially bigger than your own personal bank account.
Because if you're just in this game for the exit, if your only motivation is the big payday so you can go buy a yacht,
The moment the market crashes and that payday gets pushed back 5 years, you'll just quit.
the math no longer makes sense for your personal gain, so you just walk away.
Precisely. If your foundational DNA is solely profit-driven, the trough of sorrow will break you. When the progress is invisible and the doubts are overwhelming, the pursuit of a luxury lifestyle just isn't enough to make you suffer through the late nights.
So what's the alternative fuel source?
Well, the text reveals the specific anchoring purpose behind this entire 100-episode framework, and it highlights Dr. Gupta's personal North Star. It is a highly specific, immensely ambitious mission
Which is
to generate 1 million jobs.
1 million jobs. That is fascinating. Not $1 billion in revenue, not a massive unicorn valuation. The metric of ultimate success is 1 million jobs created.
And what's deeply insightful here is the underlying philosophy of selecting that specific metric. Building a business, in this view, isn't just an exercise in financial engineering or wealth extraction for the founders and investors.
Right, it's not a smash and grab.
It is fundamentally an act of systemic contribution. The text breaks down the ripple effect. Every single job created through this startup ecosystem represents a family that is financially supported.
It represents a local community economy that is strengthened by that family spending.
Exactly. It serves as tangible proof that entrepreneurship, when guided by the right mechanics, is a powerful engine for global prosperity.
It fundamentally shifts the entire DNA of the founder from a selfish query, like, how can I win this zero-sum game and take money from competitors, to a collaborative query. How can we build a structural system that adds lasting compounding value to society?
That's a beautiful way to phrase it.
And the implication in the text seems to be that the massive financial rewards, the lucrative exits, the IPOs, are actually just a natural byproduct of focusing obsessively on that value creation.
Exactly. The wealth is a trailing indicator of the value you provided to the ecosystem.
Okay, I want to push back on this concept a little bit, really dig into it on behalf of you, our listener,
Go ahead.
because it is very easy, very noble, to sit in a comfortable coffee shop, sipping a latte, and write down that you want to change the world or create 1 million jobs when you're just drafting your initial business plan.
It sounds great on a pitch deck.
It does. But how does a massive, highly abstract macro goal, like generating 1 million jobs globally, actually help a founder in the trenches?
What do you mean?
Picture a founder sitting alone at their desk at 2 a.m. on a Thursday, They are physically exhausted. Their prototype just broke for the 4th time this week. Their lead investor is threatening to pull out, and payroll is due on Friday, and they don't know if they have the cash to cover it.
A nightmare scenario, but very common.
How does an abstract utopian mission solve that immediate mechanical crisis?
It's a critical question about the actual practical utility of purpose. And let's be clear. A mission statement about 1 million jobs does not physically fix the broken code in the prototype.
Right. It doesn't fix the spark plug.
It does not fix the spark plug. It does not magically print the money needed for Friday's payroll.
What does it do?
What it does is synthesize the emotional endurance and the practical reality to keep the founder in the garage long enough to figure out how to fix it themselves. It prevents them from walking away from the desk at 2 a.m.
It keeps them in the seat.
But more importantly, it affects the people around them. Let's look at that 2 a.m. crisis. If you are a founder whose only goal is to buy a Ferrari, and you call your lead engineer at 2 a.m. to help you fix the broken prototype, that engineer is going to let it go to voicemail.
Oh, absolutely. They aren't going to sacrifice their sleep and their sanity just to make you rich.
Because there's no shared equity in the mission.
Right.
But if that business genuinely aligns with the social impact, if the engineer knows that fixing this prototype means the company survives, which means they can hire 10 more people next month, which means they're building a product that actually improves lives.
It fundamentally changes the culture of the company.
The team is no longer just exchanging their time for a paycheck. They are contributing their intellect to a shared mission.
It's the difference between laying bricks and building a cathedral.
Exactly. During brutal market downturns, when you simply cannot afford to pay massive financial bonuses to keep your team motivated, or when the hours are punishingly long because you're bootstrapping, that shared purpose acts as the ultimate organizational glue.
It holds everything together.
It gives the founder and the team a profound reason to wake up and endure the trouble, the friction, and the stress long after the initial excitement and novelty of starting a company have completely faded away.
So if we pull all of these concepts together,
Yeah.
the purpose is the fuel that keeps the machine running.
Yes.
The internal locus of control is the engine that generates the power to move forward, regardless of the terrain. And strategic elimination is the steering wheel that ensures you are actually driving toward a destination instead of just doing donuts in the parking lot.
That is an exceptionally accurate way to summarize the mechanical DNA of a founder. You need all three components functioning together. Fuel without an engine is just a puddle. An engine without a steering wheel is a fatal crash.
Which brings this entire expansive discussion right back down to the immediate reality for you, the listener. We've mapped out the grand architecture of this incredible 100-step StartupLanes journey, from Phase 1 foundation to Phase 4 IPO.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We understand the absolute necessity of the techie inventor mindset, tracing the logic of your business mechanics. We know the harsh reality of the arena, the ruthless execution required of the operator, and the sustainable unifying power of a genuine mission.
And now, having explored all of that, it is time for the Founder's Audit.
The Founder's Audit.
Yes, the source material issues a very direct, uncompromising challenge for self-reflection at this stage. If you are serious about building something that lasts, you have to be radically honest about your own operational DNA.
So listener, think back to last time a project of yours hit a wall or failed. What was your immediate instinctual reaction?
Did you immediately look for an external factor to blame the market, your boss, the algorithm, or did you dive into the system to find the mechanical fix, taking full responsibility for the response?
And take a hard look at your calendar right now. Look at your tasks for tomorrow. Are your daily actions, your meetings, your Zoom calls actually contributing to the value of a scalable product, the customer experience, or your capital?
Or are you just trapped in the comfortable illusion of being busy?
Doing things that feel startup-like, but produce zero actual momentum.
The journey outlined here, moving from Phase 1 to Phase 4, from Episode 1 to Episode 100, is absolutely not a sprint. The text reminds us that Dr. Gupta's foundational journey started in 1997. Decades of trial, error, debugging, and endurance. But the deeply reassuring synthesis of all this mechanical logic is that you are the architect of your own endurance.
You control the code.
Exactly. If you focus intensely on your daily execution, apply the mechanics of the operator rigorously, and anchor yourself to a mission substantially larger than yourself, you can build systems that outlive you.
We've talked a lot today about how the logic of coding, that 1997 software developer mindset where every input has a logical output, translates perfectly to the mechanics of building a massive business.
It really does.
I want to leave you with a thought that expands on that idea, bring you down to the micro level of your own life. If you step back today and view your own daily routine, your daily habits, and your emotional reactions as a string of code that is currently running the operating system of your life.
What's the bug?
Exactly. What is the single biggest bug in your personal code right now that is preventing you from scaling your true potential? Find it, fix it, and keep building, because the world needs your solution.